My sister's daughter pushed my son's new $1,200 BMX bike down the stairs and said, "Broke kids should walk." I looked at my parents, but Mom said she did him a favor. That evening, Dad texted, "We're done with you both." My sister liked it instantly. I replied, "Perfect, keep that text." At 6:09 a.m., Dad sent a shaking video from the driveway. The bike hit the fourth step first, then the seventh. Then the concrete floor of the basement, and the sound was the sound of chrome and aluminum meeting a surface they were not designed to meet at the speed and angle that gravity provides when a 12-year-old pushes a bicycle down a flight of stairs with both hands. Quinn's BMX bike. A 2024 Mongoose Title Elite. Chrome frame, black grips. 20-inch wheels. $1,200. I had bought it 6 weeks ago for Quinn's 11th birthday with money I earned on 14 overtime Saturdays, 14 emergency HVAC calls on days I was supposed to be off, 14 crawl spaces and attic hatches and furnace panels opened in houses that were not mine so I could buy a bicycle for a boy who wanted one. The bike had been ridden 3 times, 3 rides, 2 in the driveway and 1 on the greenway behind our townhouse, where Quinn had pedaled for 40 minutes and come home with mud on the tires and the grin of a boy who has just discovered that a bike with good shocks can handle a gravel path at speed. Nessa was standing at the top of the stairs, my sister Britta's daughter. 12 years old. She was looking down at the bike the way a person looks at something they have thrown away on purpose and are satisfied with the disposal. Broke kids should walk. 4 words, delivered by a 12-year-old to an 11-year-old. In her grandparents' house. In front of her mother, her father Troy, my mother Orla, my father Wick, and Quinn, who was standing 3 feet from me with his hands at his sides and his mouth open and the expression of a boy who has just watched something he loved hit concrete because someone his own age decided it should. Quinn did not cry. He is 11, and the not crying was the effort of a boy who is learning from his father that some rooms do not deserve the tears. And this room was one of them. But the effort cost him, and the cost was visible in his jaw, which was tight, and his eyes, which were wet without spilling, and his fists, which were closed the way fists close when a boy wants to do something with his hands, but his father has taught him that the hands stay down. I looked at Orla. My mother was sitting in the armchair next to the window. She had watched Nessa walk to the top of the stairs. She had watched Nessa put both hands on the handlebars. She had watched the push. And the watching had produced no sound, no intervention, no hand raised, no voice, no Nessa, stop. The watching had produced the same silence Orla produces at every family event when the event involves Britta's children doing something to Quinn, the silence of permission. Mom. She just pushed his bike down the stairs. Orla looked at me. She did not look at Quinn. She did not look at the basement where the bike was lying on the concrete floor, with the front fork bent and the wheel warped and the chrome frame scratched across the down tube in a line that ran from the head badge to the seat clamp like a scar. She did him a favor. That bike was $1,200 you do not have, Teague. You crawl under houses for a living. You rent a townhouse. You drive a 10-year-old Civic. And you spent $1,200 on a bicycle for a boy who will outgrow it in a year because you are trying to buy the childhood you cannot afford. Nessa did not break anything. She showed your son what happens when broke people pretend they are not. The sentence filled the room the way refrigerant fills a line. Under pressure, invisible, and toxic if inhaled in a closed space. Crawl under houses. Rent a townhouse. 10-year-old Civic. Broke people pretending. 4 cuts aimed at the parts of my life that Orla measures against Britta's and finds insufficient. My trade, my housing, my car, and my parenting, which Orla has never called parenting. Orla calls it doing his best, which is the phrase mothers use for sons they have given up on. Britta was standing in the kitchen doorway. She did not tell Nessa to apologize. She did not walk down to the basement to look at the bike. She did not ask if Quinn was okay. She stood in the doorway with her phone in her hand and the posture of a woman who has watched her daughter destroy something and is waiting for the room to decide whether the destruction was wrong. And the room had decided through Orla that the destruction was a favor, and the favor was permission. And the permission was Britta's parenting philosophy: Nessa does what Nessa does. And what Nessa does is what the family allows. And the family allows everything Nessa does, because Nessa's father is Troy, and Troy makes $140,000. And the $140,000 is the family's measure of which grandchildren matter and which grandchildren should walk. Troy was on the couch. He had not moved. He had not spoken. Troy's contribution to every family gathering is the absence of objection, which is a contribution the way 0 is a number, technically present, functionally nothing. Wick was in the kitchen. He had heard the crash. He had walked to the doorway, looked down the stairs, looked at the bike, and walked back to the kitchen without a word. The wordlessness was Wick's version of agreement. If the word was disagreement, it would have been spoken. And the not speaking was the speaking, and the speaking said Orla was right. I looked at Quinn. He was looking at me. The look of an 11-year-old who has just heard his grandmother call his father broke in front of 6 people, and whose question is not, is it true? But what are we going to do? The question was in his eyes, and the answer was in my hands, and my hands were not fists. My hands were a father's hands, and a father's hands pick up his son's coat and his son's helmet and his son, and the picking up is the leaving, and the leaving is the answer. I walked to the basement. I picked up the bike. The front fork was bent 15 degrees to the left. The front wheel wobbled. The frame was scratched but not cracked. The bike was damaged, not destroyed. It could be repaired. The repairing would cost less than the original. And the original had cost 14 Saturdays. And the 14 Saturdays were mine, and the bike was Quinn's, and the basement was Orla's, and I was leaving all 3. I carried the bike up the stairs. I set it by the front door. I put Quinn's jacket on him. I put his helmet in his hands. I opened the door. Thank you for the afternoon. We are leaving. Orla did not stand. Wick did not come out of the kitchen. Britta did not move from the doorway. Nessa was still at the top of the stairs with the expression of a 12-year-old who has not been corrected and therefore believes the correction is unnecessary. Troy was still on the couch. The room was the same room it had been before the bike went down the stairs, which is the room where Quinn's value is measured by his father's salary, and his father's salary is measured against Troy's, and the distance between the two is the distance between grandchildren who ride bikes and grandchildren who ride iPads, and the family has chosen the iPads. I loaded the bike into the back of my Civic. The hatchback barely closed over the handlebars. Quinn sat in the passenger seat and buckled his seatbelt and did not say a word for the first 4 minutes of the drive, because 4 minutes is how long it takes an 11-year-old to process the distance between a grandmother who says she did him a favor and a father who carries a broken bike up a flight of stairs and puts it in a car that his grandmother called a 10-year-old Civic, as if the age of the car determines the quality of the driver. Dad, am I broke? No, you are 11. You do not have bills. You have a bike that needs a new fork and a wheel trued, and the bike will be fixed by Tuesday. She said broke kids should walk. She said a lot of things. You are going to ride. Welcome to Karma Unfolded, where the person who works 14 overtime Saturdays for a bike is not broke, and the family that calls him broke is about to learn what broke actually looks like. If your parents have ever watched your child's property be destroyed and called it a favor, subscribe now. Because the bike is in the car and the text is coming and the truck in Dad's driveway has my name on the title. My name is Teague Adler. I am 35 years old. I am a licensed fact technician. At Summit Climate Systems in Nashville, Tennessee, I install furnaces, air conditioners, heat pumps, and ductwork. I service residential and commercial units. I crawl into attics in July when the temperature inside the attic is 140 degrees, and I crawl under houses in January when the temperature in the crawl space is below freezing, and the crawling is not a career Orla respects because the crawling does not involve a desk or a title or a salary that begins with a 1 and contains 6 digits. My salary is $72,000 a year. My family calls it fixing AC units. My coworker Tully is 48. He has been in VAC for 26 years. He is the person who trained me. The person who taught me that a thermostat is a promise. It tells the room what temperature is coming, and the technician is the person who keeps the promise. Tully is the person who said the Monday after the bike incident when I told him what happened, "You bought that man a truck. You pay his insurance. You keep his house running, and his 12-year-old granddaughter pushed your son's bike down the stairs and called him broke. You are not broke, Teague. You are the reason they are not broke." And the reason just got a text that said, "We are done." When I told Tully about the 14 overtime Saturdays, he shook his head. Not in disagreement, in recognition. Tully is a father of 3. He knows what 14 Saturdays cost. 14 Saturdays is 14 mornings driving to someone else's house to fix their heat, so your son can have a bike that costs what the heat repair costs, and the cost is the same dollar, and the dollar can only go one direction, and the direction I chose was Quinn. Tully understood. Tully said, "The bike is the work is the love, and the girl who pushed it down the stairs pushed your work and your love down the same flight." Quinn earned the bike, not with money. He earned it with patience. I told him in June that the bike would come for his birthday in September. 3 months, 92 days. He counted. He kept a calendar on his wall with the days crossed off in red marker, the calendar of a boy who is waiting for something his father promised. And the waiting is the trust, and the trust is the contract, and the contract is, your father said the bike is coming, and your father does not break contracts. On September 14th, I brought the bike home. Quinn was on the porch. He saw the box in the hatchback. He ran down the steps. And the running was the fastest he has moved since he was 8 years old at the county fair when he spotted the funnel cake stand. And the running was the same kind. Joy aimed at a specific target, moving at the speed of a boy whose patience has been rewarded by a father who kept a contract. 3 rides. That is how many times Quinn rode the Mongoose Title Elite before Nessa pushed it down the stairs. 3 rides. 2 in the driveway and 1 on the greenway. 42 days of ownership. 42 days between the box on the porch and the chrome on the concrete. And the 42 days were the distance between a promise kept and a promise broken by a 12-year-old whose grandmother said the breaking was a favor. What my family does not know is what I pay for. The F-150 in Wick's driveway is not Wick's truck. It is my truck. I bought it 2 years ago from a dealership in Murfreesboro, a 2019 Ford F-150 XLT. 42,000 miles, $28,000. The title is in my name. The registration is in my name. The insurance is on my policy. I gave it to Wick because his old truck died and his pension does not cover a vehicle payment, and the pension is $1,900 a month, and the $1,900 covers the mortgage and the utilities and the groceries and nothing else. And the nothing else included transportation. And the transportation was provided by the son who crawls under houses. Wick's truck insurance, $240 a month on my policy for 2 years. $5,760. Because adding a second vehicle to my commercial policy was cheaper than Wick getting his own coverage with his driving record. And the cheaper was mine, and the driving was his. Parents' home insurance, $180 a month for 3 years. $6,480. Because the policy lapsed 2 years before I started paying when Wick missed a payment, and the lapse was discovered when a pipe burst in the upstairs bathroom, and the burst was not covered, because the policy was lapsed, and the repair was $3,200, and the $3,200 was mine, and the reinstatement was mine, and the monthly going forward was mine. Britta's kids after-school program, $350 a month for 2 years. $8,400. Because Britta told me the program was essential for Nessa's development, and the development was $350 a month, and the month was mine, and the development produced a 12-year-old who pushes bikes downstairs and calls other children broke. HVAC system at parents' house. I installed a complete system: furnace, air conditioner, thermostat, and ductwork. 3 years ago, when the old system failed in August. Labor and materials, $6,800. Charge to the family, $0. Because the son who fixes AC units fixed his parents' AC unit for free, and the free was 42 hours of work across 2 weekends, and the 42 hours were not counted by anyone except the man who worked them. Total invisible support, $28,000 truck, plus $5,760 insurance, plus $6. $480 home insurance, plus $8,400 after school, plus $6,800 FAC install. $55,440. From the man who crawls under houses to the family that calls him broke. Saturday evening. 7:42 p.m. My townhouse. Quinn was in his room with the door closed. The closing that 11-year-olds do when the processing is private, and the private needs a door between the boy and the rest of the house. I had checked on him once at 6:30. He was lying on his bed looking at the ceiling. The position boys take when the ceiling is the only surface in the room that does not remind them of the thing that happened. Because the walls have posters, and the desk has homework, and the floor has shoes, but the ceiling has nothing, and nothing is what a boy needs to see. When his grandmother has called his father broke, and his cousin has pushed his birthday present down a flight of stairs, and the present is in the garage with a bent fork, and the garage is below his room, and the below is where the bike is, and the above is where the boy is, and the distance between them is one floor and one afternoon that neither of them deserved. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my phone in the controlled calm of a man who has spent 6 hours processing the distance between she did him a favor and the $55,440 he has spent on the family that said it. The text arrived at 7:42 p.m. group chat. From Wick. We're done with you both. You embarrassed this family by leaving like that. Your attitude is the reason Quinn will never fit in. Do not come to the house until you learn how to behave. Britta liked the message at 7:43 p.m. 60 seconds. The speed of a sister who has been waiting for the text and whose thumb was ready. I read the text twice. The second reading was for the word done. Done is a word families use when they believe the person they are done with needs them more than they need the person. The word assumes dependency. The word assumes that the son who was told to leave will come back, because the son always comes back, because the coming back is what sons do when the alternative is losing the family. Wick assumed I would come back. Wick assumed the truck and the insurance and the after-school payments and the HVAC system and the $55. $440 in invisible support would continue flowing from the man who crawls under houses to the family that calls him broke, because the flowing is what I have always done, and the doing is what they have always expected, and the expecting is the trap. I replied at 7:44 p.m. Perfect. Keep that text. 4 words. The text that would become the receipt. I called the towing company at 7:51 p.m. Nashville Flatbed Services. I provided the vehicle description, the pickup address, the pickup time, and the title number proving ownership. The dispatcher confirmed the schedule. The flatbed would arrive at Wick's driveway at approximately 6 a.m., and the loading would take 9 minutes, and the driving would take the truck to my garage, where the truck would sit next to the bike that was pushed down the stairs. And the truck and the bike would be in the same garage owned by the same man, and the man was not broke. I almost did not schedule the tow. The truck was Wick's daily driver. Without it, he would have no transportation. He is 62 years old, with a pension that does not cover Uber, and a neighborhood that does not have a bus line, and a wife whose car is a 2012 sedan that she does not let him drive, because the sedan is Orla's, and Orla's things are Orla's, and the sharing does not apply to the woman who called a $1,200 bike a waste. But Quinn's face stopped me. The jaw, the wet eyes, the closed fists. The face of a boy who stood in a room where his grandmother said broke people pretending and his cousin said broke kids should walk, and nobody in the room said stop. The truck was leaving. I canceled Wick's truck insurance at 8 p.m. $240 a month. Policy termination in 30 days. I canceled the home insurance at 8:05 p.m. $180 a month. The policy would lapse in 30 days, and the mortgage lender would be notified, and the notification would trigger a force-placed policy at 3 times the premium, and the premium would be Wick's problem, because the son who had been paying the premium was done, and the done was not a word the son had used. The done was the father's word, sent at 7:42 p.m., and the son was honoring it. I almost called Britta to tell her the after-school program was about to end. The sister in the like text, the sister who had tapped a thumbs up on "We're done with you both in 60 seconds, the sister whose daughter pushed a bike down the stairs and was not corrected. But the bike stopped me. It was in the garage. Chrome scratched, fork bent, wheel warped. The bike that cost 14 Saturdays was sitting next to the wall in a garage where the man who paid for it was being called broke by the family that spent $8,400 of his money on the development of the child who destroyed it. The call to Britta could wait. The cancellation could not. I canceled Britta's after-school program payment at 8:10 p.m. $350 a month. The program would contact Britta when the next payment did not process, and Britta would learn that the payment had been coming from the brother she liked a done text about, and the learning would be the first time Britta connected the thumbs up to a consequence. I almost deleted the title photo from my phone and went to bed. The cancellations were done. The tow was scheduled. The insurance was terminated. The after-school was stopped. The revenge, if that is what it was complete. But Quinn's calendar stopped me. The red marker calendar on his bedroom wall, the one with 92 days crossed off in a neat diagonal line through each square. The calendar of a boy who had counted the days until a bike his father promised would arrive. Every day was crossed. The promise was kept. And the bike that the promise produced was in the garage with a bent fork, because people who were never part of the contract had broken the thing the contract delivered. The people who broke it needed to see the title that proved who owned what in this family, because ownership is the thing they have never understood about the son who crawls under houses. The son owns more than they know, and the knowing was about to arrive in a group chat. I opened the family group chat at 8:30 p.m. I uploaded 2 images. The first, the F-150's title document showing the owner as Teague Adler. The second, a screenshot of Wick's text, "We're done with you both," with Britta's like visible below it. I typed, "The truck in your driveway is titled to me. Always has been. Flatbed scheduled for 6 a.m. Done is done." Welcome back to Karma Unfolded. If you are the father who bought the truck and paid the insurance and installed the HVAC and was told his son's $1,200 bike was a favor when it was pushed down the stairs, hit subscribe. Because the truck leaves at 6 and the text said "done and done" is the most expensive word this family has ever used. Sunday morning, 6:09 a.m. The video arrived in the family group chat at 6:09 a.m. Wick's phone. Vertical video. Shaking. The video showed a Nashville flatbed services truck in Wick's driveway, ramp down, hydraulic winch engaged, and the 2019 F-150 XLT being loaded onto the bed with the mechanical efficiency of a tow crew that does this 40 times a week. The video was 11 seconds long. Wick's hands shook for all 11 of them. The shaking was not cold. The morning was 52 degrees. The shaking was the hand of a man who is watching the truck he has driven for 2 years being loaded onto a flatbed at 6:09 in the morning, because the text he sent at 7:42 p.m. last night contained the word "done," and the son who received it took the word literally. No caption on the video, no text, just the shaking 11 seconds of a man watching a truck leave. Sunday morning, 7:30 a.m. Wick arrived at my townhouse in Orla's Sedan. He did not knock. He pounded. The flat palm pound of a man whose driveway is empty and whose anger has had 81 minutes to build since the flatbed left, and whose transportation has been removed by the son he told to learn how to behave. I opened the door. Wick was on the step in his bathrobe and slippers. He had not changed. He had driven 22 minutes in his bathrobe because the bathrobe was what he was wearing when the flatbed arrived, and the arriving did not allow time for dressing, because the arriving was the crisis, and the crisis does not wait for pants. Orla was in the car. Engine running. Window down. Listening. You stole my truck. I reclaimed my truck. The title is in my name. It has been in my name since I bought it at Henderson Ford in Murfreesboro 2 years ago for $28,000. I gave you the keys. I did not give you the title. The truck is mine the way the HVAC system in your house is mine, and the home insurance is mine, and the truck insurance is mine, and every other thing I have given this family that the family does not acknowledge. Because acknowledging would require admitting that the son who crawls under houses is the reason the house has heat and the driveway has a truck and the policy has a premium. That truck is mine. You gave it to me. I let you drive it. Letting someone drive is not giving. A title transfer is giving. There is no title transfer. There is a title with my name on it and a flatbed receipt in my email and a truck in my garage next to Quinn's bike. The bike your granddaughter pushed down the stairs yesterday while you stood in the kitchen and said nothing. Wick's face tightened. The tightening of a man who is standing in a bathrobe on a doorstep trying to argue ownership of a vehicle whose title he has never held. And the argument is failing because titles do not negotiate and names on titles do not change because a man in a bathrobe is angry. You sent a text at 7:42 p.m. that said we are done with you both. Britta liked it at 7:43. I scheduled the flatbed at 7:51. The math is 9 minutes between you're done and my done. Your done was words. My done was a tow truck. The difference is that mine had a title number. Orla opened the car door. She stepped out. She was wearing the cardigan she wears to every family event. The cardigan that has witnessed every moment she has allowed Nessa to mistreat Quinn, and every moment she has reframed the mistreatment as a favor. You cannot take a truck from your father over a bicycle. The bicycle was $1,200. I earned it on 14 overtime Saturdays, 14 emergency calls on my days off, 14 crawl spaces in attics while Troy sat at his desk earning his $140. Your granddaughter pushed it down the stairs and said broke kids should walk. You sat in the armchair and said she did him a favor. You called me broke, Mom. You said I crawl under houses. You said I rent a townhouse. You said I drive a 10-year-old Civic. And the family that calls me broke has been funded by my paychecks for 3 years. So let me show you what broke looks like when the broke person stops paying. I counted on my fingers. $28,000 for the truck that was in your driveway this morning and is now in my garage. The truck you thought was Wick's. The truck that is titled to me, registered to me, insured by me. $28,000 from the man who crawls under houses. Second finger. $5,760 in truck insurance. $240 a month for 2 years on my policy because Dad's driving record priced him out and the difference was mine. Third finger. $6,480 in home insurance. $180 a month for 3 years because the policy lapsed and the pipe burst and the $3,200 repair was mine and the monthly going forward was mine and the silence around all of it was mine. Fourth finger. $8,400 in after school payments for Nessa, the child who pushed Quinn's bike down the stairs, the child whose development I funded at $350 a month for 2 years, the child who said broke kids should walk while her after-school program was paid for by the kid's father she was calling broke. Fifth finger. $6,800 for the HVAC system I installed in your house. 42 hours across 2 weekends. Furnace, air conditioner, thermostat, ductwork, charge to the family, 0. Because the son who fixes ACK units fixed his parents' ACK for free, and the free was not acknowledged then, and it is being acknowledged now. I held up my hand. 5 fingers. 5 line items. 1 number. Total $55,440. From the man who crawls under houses to the family that calls him broke. And the man is done crawling for this family. Wick's hand went to the railing, the grip of a man whose legs are processing a number they have never heard spoken aloud, because the number has been accumulating in silence for 3 years, and the silence was the son's, and the accumulation was the family's, and the speaking was the end of both. Orla's hand went to her mouth. The gesture of a woman who has just heard the number behind the word broke, and the number does not match the word, and the not matching is the kind of error that cannot be corrected by adjusting the vocabulary. Because the vocabulary was the weapon, and the weapon just turned. The truck is mine. The insurance is canceled. The home insurance is canceled. The after-school payments are canceled. And the text you sent at 7:42 is the receipt for all of it. You said done. I heard you. Done is done, Dad, and done does not come with a truck. Wick opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I will pay for the bike, the repair, whatever it costs, and I will talk to Nessa. She will apologize. Just bring the truck back and put the insurance back on. We can fix this. I held up my phone. The screen showed Wick's text. We're done with you both. Britta's thumbs up underneath. You sent this at 7:42 p.m. Britta liked it at 7:43. The tow was scheduled at 7:51. Done is done, Dad. The truck left your driveway at 6:09 this morning, and the text is the receipt. Wick stared at the screen that held his own words, his own timestamp, his own daughter's endorsement, and the flatbed confirmation that turned the words into action. The staring lasted 6 seconds. Then he turned. He walked to Orla's sedan. He got in the passenger seat. Orla backed out of the driveway. The sedan carried 2 people who had arrived demanding a truck and were leaving with a number. And the number was $55,440. And the number was the size of the son they had called broke. And the size was larger than the truck and the house and the insurance and every other thing the son had provided, while the family measured him by his car and his crawl space and his rent. The fallout was mechanical and financial, and it arrived in the order that support collapses when the supporter withdraws. Transportation first, then insurance, then the small monthly payments that nobody noticed until they stopped. The F-150 sat in my garage next to Quinn's damaged bike. The truck and the bike were in the same space. $28,000 of metal next to $1,200 of chrome. Both belonging to the same man, both removed from the people who did not value them. And the garage was the place where the math was visible. The family called me broke, and the garage contained $29,200 in assets that said otherwise. Wick did not have transportation for 3 weeks. Orla drove him to his medical appointments and the grocery store and the pharmacy. And the driving was Orla's first experience of being the sole transportation provider for a household that had been riding on a truck titled to the son she called broke. The driving required adjustments, scheduling around Orla's errands, combining trips, waiting in parking lots. The adjustments were the daily texture of life without the son's truck. And the texture was rough and unfamiliar and would not soften because the truck was not coming back. Britta called me Monday evening. The after-school program had contacted her about a failed payment. She asked who had been paying. I said, the broke one. The call lasted 8 seconds. 8 seconds is the duration of a sister, understanding that the thumbs up she tapped on "We're done with you both" has cost her $350 a month in childcare for the daughter who pushed a bike down the stairs. And the cost is now hers, because the broke brother's money is no longer available for the development of a child, whose development included learning the phrase "broke kids should walk." Britta did not call again. Troy did not call either, which is consistent with Troy's contribution to every family event. Nothing. The home insurance lapsed 30 days later. The mortgage lender, First Horizon, sent Wick a notice of force-placed insurance at $540 a month, 3 times the $180 premium I had been covering. The $540 was the cost of insurance provided by a lender when the homeowner's own policy lapses. And the cost is designed to be punitive because the lender is protecting their asset, and the protection is expensive, and the expense is the homeowner's problem. And the homeowner's problem was previously the son's problem, and the son's problem was now the father's problem. And the father's problem was $360 per month, more than the son's had been. And the $360 was the monthly price of the word done. Nessa was not corrected. Britta did not call to say Nessa had apologized. Orla did not call to say the family had discussed the bike. Wick did not call to say the word broke was wrong. The not calling was the family's position. The bike was a favor. The text was justified. And the son who took the truck was the problem. The position was consistent with every position the family had ever held regarding the son who crawls under houses, which is that the crawling is beneath them, and the son is beneath them, and the grandson is beneath them, and the bike was beneath their concern. The position had not changed. The funding had. The following Sunday afternoon, my townhouse driveway. The bike was fixed. I had taken it to Riverside Cycle on Monday. The front fork was straightened, $180. The front wheel was trued, and the bearings repacked, $65. The frame scratches were left because scratches on a BMX are not damage. Scratches on a BMX are proof that the bike has been ridden, has been dropped, has been recovered, and has been ridden again. And the proof is in the paint, and the paint tells the story, and the story is that this bike has survived something, and the surviving is the point. Quinn carried the bike out of the garage. He set it on the driveway. He put on his helmet. He clipped the chin strap. He put his foot on the left pedal and pushed off with his right, and the bike moved down the driveway, and the moving was smooth because the fork was straight, and the wheel was true, and the boy was riding. He reached the sidewalk. He turned. He came back. The chrome frame caught the afternoon light the way chrome catches light when the surface has been through something and the light finds the scratches, and the scratches throw the light in directions the frame did not throw it before. And the new directions are not worse. The new directions are different. And the different is the story. I was sitting on the front step with a glass of water, watching. The watching was the answer to broke kids should walk. The boy was not walking. The boy was riding. The bike that was pushed down the stairs was back on wheels. The wheels were turning, and the turning was the sound of 14 overtime Saturdays and a $180 fork repair, and a father who carried a bike up a flight of stairs and put it in a 10-year-old Civic and drove home and fixed what was broken. Because fixing what is broken is what vac technicians do. We find the system that is not working, we diagnose the failure, we replace the part, and we turn it back on. The bike was back on. The boy was riding. And the family that called him broke had lost a $28,000 truck over a $1,200 bike because a 12-year-old pushed it down the stairs and nobody in the room said stop. Welcome back to Karma Unfolded. If this story reminded you that the person who works overtime to buy his son a bike is not broke, and that a truck title does not lie, share it tonight. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me, has your family ever called your child broke while you were paying their bills? I will see you in the next one.